He is a family law attorney, I might add, and a partner with Berkman, Bottger, Newman, and Schein right here on Long Island. And we're talking about adultery, a crime of the heart. No longer a crime in the state of New York. We will explain that as we welcome in Allyson Berger. Allyson, great having you back.
Great to be back, Jay.
Yes, indeed. We've discussed prior the governor signing a bill repealing the more than a century-old law that classified cheating as a Class B misdemeanor, right? Then landed a lot of folks behind bars for up to 90 days. So give me a sense as far as the legal changes leading to a spouse as far as cheating no longer being considered a crime in the Empire State. What led to that? Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much for having me. And let me just tell you that although adultery is no longer considered a crime, there's not much of a change in our law here in New York at all. I really can't recall in any time since 1907, at least in the last 5 decades, that anyone legitimately went to jail for committing adultery. So the change in the law really has pretty little effect on our practical lives.
Yep, no question. Seems that way. Now, what about the legal change as far as how the courts, Allyson, will handle matters, talking like alimony and, division, the property division, divvying it up, child custody in divorce cases. How will the change really kind of correlate how the courts are going to go about their business here?
That's an excellent question. So since 2010 here in New York State, we're what's called a no-fault state for divorce, which means that neither spouse has to prove wrongdoing by the other in order to get a divorce. They can simply say there's been an irretrievable breakdown in our relationship for 6 months and you're entitled to a divorce. So really, whether or not a party has committed adultery doesn't weigh in on someone's entitlement to seek divorce here in New York. I will say, though, that the practical implications of divorce, whether they're emotional, whether financial, those might still come to the forefront in a court proceeding and could be considered, but absolutely no effect on alimony, or as we now call it, spousal maintenance.
So basically, when you talk about decriminalization of adultery, the enforcement of no-fault divorce laws in New York, basically you're stating the case regarding impact here.
Exactly right. And really the decriminalization doesn't mean that we're all of a sudden incentivized to go commit adultery. It just means that there's no instance where anyone can be incarcerated for it. But the real effects in divorce land are slim to none.
Yep, no question about it. What about the consequences from a legal sense, Allyson, for actions? I'm talking maybe spousal abuse, distress, emotional distress, caused by infidelity within the confines of the institution itself. What about that as far as the consequences from a legal standpoint here?
For sure. So the consequences of adultery, and like you mentioned very importantly, Jay, whether there's been abuse and things of that nature, are always still going to be considered in terms of custody disputes, in terms of financial dissolution of a marriage. So very much still relevant from those perspectives. There can be ripple effects both for custody and financial considerations. But no one's going behind bars.
Yeah. It's interesting because the law itself stood for about 117 years. I mean, it was enacted, folks. Think about this. Was it 1907, I guess? And it was enacted. The law was severely criticized for punishing this type of behavior. How do you think it was? I mean, listen, they joined other states as far as in decriminalizing this whole thing. In fact, District of Columbia has also repealed this adultery law there. I think I read that too recently. But, it's interesting here where laws are meant to protect our community, to serve as a deterrent to antisocial behavior. New York's law advanced when you think about it, neither purpose here, when you kind of break it down.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think what the governor was saying on this law that's relatively been unchecked since 1907, that adulterers, matters of adultery should clearly be handled privately and not by the criminal justice system. I think you're totally right. Policing this type of behavior is really something that's not appropriate for the courts in a criminal context.
Yeah. And you go back and knowing you were coming on, I was reading in 2012, the United Nations Human Rights Commission actually issued a report, this is 12 years ago, folks, advocating that adultery should not be a criminal offense. And it noted that it's mostly women who are charged with adultery, by the way. Adultery carries the death sentence. It carries a death sentence in far too many countries. So there are a lot of laws, stigmatize, unfairly punish, victimize women and their families. But, you go around the world in some of these other areas, you talk about harsh consequences, Alice.
Oh, no question. And disproportionately targeting women in that sense, too.
Yeah, that's something to certainly keep in mind. And, listen, it was bandied about for a long time and everything coming into play here. But, yeah, it finally has come to fruition. I call you the doctor because you are of family law. Allyson Berger, family law attorney extraordinaire and partner, of course, with Berkman, Bottger, Newman, and Schein right here on Long Island. We'll keep an eye on things here and look forward to getting you back down the road.
Thank you so much, Jay, and thank you for having me. We are happy to service Suffolk and Nassau counties, and feel free to check me out. Our firm's website is berkbot.com. That's BERKBOT.com.
Excellent job there, Allyson Berger checking in. Thanks, Allyson. Great Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Take care, Jay.
Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, anti-Israel